Kimberly Crowe blew our minds with her insights on how to grow an engaged audience who buys from you through the power of speaking on other people's stages. Kimberly is an award-winning international inspirational public speaker, keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, and an authority on Speak to Sell. She's also a best-selling author and serial entrepreneur. She's the broadcast personality of the weekly online show Speakers Playhouse and the founder of Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel. Kimberly is known for her expertise in audience engagement. Her mission is to make speaking on stages super accessible and super fun for entrepreneurs and coaches who want to share their message with the world. Take it away, Kimberly.
Awesome. All right, so I'm super excited to be talking to the Dragon 88 group today. Thank you, Bogdan, for the opportunity to share with this group. We're going to be talking about how to list build and how to do it by speaking on my favorite thing, other people's stages. So when you speak on other people's stages, it's an opportunity to get in front of their audience and share who you are and what you're up to in the world, and ideally make some sort of offer, even if you're not offering a program, product, or service, because you're not allowed to do a traditional speak to sell. Ideally, there should be some way that you can get them on your list. So I know that a lot of people at the end of a podcast will say, a lot of our podcasters will say, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? And many people are tempted to give out a phone number or an email address, sometimes a website where they can find out more information. But I highly recommend giving out a gift of some kind. That would be the gift that they can then download, and in exchange for their email address, then they can get that gift and you get their email address. The reason I say that is because if you give out your name and phone number, or your phone number or email address, oftentimes people that listen to those who have something to sell to you will take advantage of the fact that they now have your email address and your phone number, and they will reach out to you saying, hey, I saw you speak on that amazing podcast, and I think you'd be wonderful to write a book, or to I could build out your website better, or I could do this, or you're missing the opportunity to get on social media, or whatever it is. And so it suddenly becomes a sales call for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're all trying to sell something to somebody, even if it's just our teenagers that we're selling, like, let's take out the trash. We're all trying to sell something to somebody. But ideally, you're having the opportunity to capture their email address so that you can add them to your list. Now, just polling this audience, I'm guessing you all have a lot of contacts in social media. This particular group is probably hot on LinkedIn. Give me a wave if you do LinkedIn. Anybody LinkedIn? Yeah. And then probably another social media. And that could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be X, it could be any of the others that are out there. And some of you might be TikTokers, I don't know. But usually it's LinkedIn plus, right? Some other social media that's out there. And while LinkedIn and social media are fantastic, don't stop doing that. They're not great for list build unless you go to the trouble of going to their LinkedIn profile and trying to dig and find their email address, which may or may not be discoverable on LinkedIn. Sometimes the email addresses are hidden. So while you're connected with them on LinkedIn and you can send them messages through LinkedIn, some people don't check their LinkedIn messages. They do, however, often check email. And if you have a direct message for them in social media, that can be powerful. But if you don't have their email address, sometimes it can be difficult to give them information on a regular basis. So I'm a huge fan of building your email list. People will say, oh, emails don't get opened anymore, or email's a thing of the past. I like direct messaging. That's fine, direct messaging, but that is manual work. It's very hard to automate direct messaging. And when you do, you can get thrown into ugly boxes really, really quickly. If you do email correctly, you're going to be able to have very large lists continue to grow and be able to nurture people into a sale. So let me get into why it's so important to have an email list. And now all of you already have an email list, whether you think you do or not, whether you think it's small or not. I have a list of over 50,000. That for most people is huge. There are people out there with much larger lists than me, and that's fine. But generally speaking, when I talk to entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, speakers, people who are building businesses, even up to the $1 million mark, oftentimes they have lists of 10,000 and below very, very, very frequently. So if you have a list of 1,000, awesome. If you have a list of 100, you're on your way. If you have a list of 10,000, pat yourself on the back, great job. And really you can do a lot with that. I had a speaker one time say that you should calculate about $1 per email per month on your email list. If that were true, I'd be making $50,000 a month from my email list. That is not true in my experience. So when people tell you that, it just like take that with a grain of salt. They're probably trying to sell you something. All right. But an email list is super powerful because of some very important numbers. 7, 4, 11. You can write that down, 7, 4, 11. These are not my numbers. These are actually Google's numbers. Google did some research to find out about buying behaviors. Now, with the advent of the internet, we have different buying behaviors than prior to the internet, prior to everybody adopting stuff on the internet. So prior to the internet, I was in sales. People would say, oh, it takes 8 to 12 touches before somebody will make a buying decision. And that was true. You had to call a client 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times before they were like, yeah, I'm ready to buy, right? And that was very common back then. But now with the advent of the internet, our buying behaviors have changed because we may not need somebody to call us 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. But what we do need is other information from other sources, mostly on the internet. So 7 is, well, we'll do 11 first. 11 is 11 different touches. That's the last one. When Google did their research, they found it took about 11 different touches before somebody would make a buying decision. So what's a touch? An email, social media post that they see, a LinkedIn post that they see, meeting you at an event like this, meeting you at an in-person event, hearing from somebody else that you are awesome, being able to research you and find you on the internet somehow on, if you did a podcast or a radio show, if you have a website out there, wherever you have, they've got to have about 11 different touches before they make a buying decision. And if you think of your buying decisions, you didn't buy something that oftentimes a major purchase the first time you heard about it, or you didn't do it consistently. Now, maybe some of you were like, I saw a Jaguar, I went and I bought a Jaguar and I love my Jaguar. That's awesome if that's true. But you don't make all of your buying decisions that way, I would guess. A house, a car, a jet, even a pair of new ski boots. You're not going to make that without making a little bit of an investment first. Now, your investment comes in the other numbers. It's the 7 represents 7 hours of research, an average of 7 hours of research before somebody will make a major buying decision. Now, what counts as that research? Maybe they heard you speak on a podcast. Maybe they were on your website and they were checking out all the different links on your website and spent some time there. Maybe they saw your LinkedIn profile. Maybe they read one of your emails. Maybe they talked with a friend about how awesome you are. And they were like, I know Wendy, she's the financial lion. I love her to pieces. She's adorable, right? And then that counts as part of that 7 hours of research. The 4 in the middle is they have to find you in 4 different locations. So while the financiallion.com would be an amazing one site, and you should have something like that, LinkedIn can be another site, right? You can actually have content out there that is podcasts. So I have been on a lot of podcasts. If you Google Kimberly Crowe, you're going to find about 37 of us. But I've actually been on a TEDx, and so that got me a lot of views. If you Google Kimberly Crowe TEDx, you're actually going to get about 8 pages of scroll before you find any other Kimberly Crowe. Because every time I'm on a podcast, TEDx shows up in my bio, and then it's linked that way. And for social media purposes, you can find me by Googling that, and you can find a whole lot of information on that. We use hashtags. For our Speakers Playhouse, we use the hashtag best 90 minutes of my week. If you Google hashtag best 90 minutes of my week, you're going to find Speakers Playhouse over and over and over and over and over again. So you want to be able to make sure that there's something that's repeatable about you that's going to be out there on social media in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different locations. That means that you should probably be on some podcasts. You've got to be found in other locations. You got to be able to be referred by your friends and your clients, right? That they know what you do for a living and they know who to tell about it and they can recommend you, that they are talking about it. Now, let me give it a real-time example of this that really happened to me. Does anybody here know Brendan Burchard? Anybody know Brendan Burchard? Okay, one of you, two of you. All right, so that was me. I had no idea who Brendan Burchard was. No idea. In 2000, I had a friend come meet me. He was actually the person who talked to me about traveling full time. I was like, oh my gosh, you're such an interesting person. I got to know all about you. A little while later, he emailed me and he's like, hey, do you know anything about Brendan Burchard? He's super awesome and he's right up your alley. You would totally love this guy. And I was like, no, I know nothing about him. Like, that was the first time I heard that name. So he's like, yeah, you might want to go to some of his events. He's really your style. Okay, so that was one touch, one location, and maybe 5 minutes of content, right? But it's building. So then nothing happens for about 2 years because he doesn't have any events happening. But then in 2023, he had his first event since the pandemic. My friend reached out to me again and he said, hey, Brendan's having an event. Remember I told you about him? This is a really cool event. It's happening in Austin. You should definitely go to it. So I go to the website to find out more about this event. Him telling me about it was another touch, more minutes in that 7 hours and another location, right? So now we've got more information on it. So I go to the website, another location. I spend some time on there. I got a friend in Austin. So sure, I'm going to buy a ticket. It was like $197, something like that. I was like, sure, I'll do that. I can stay for free with my friend, be totally awesome. And I can learn about this. And if I don't like it, I can go hang out with my friend. But then emails start coming in from Brendan, right? Super glad that you're joining us. Here's what you're going to expect. Here's the information that you're going to get. We can't wait to see you. Would you like to upgrade to VIP? Here's some more information. This is my favorite YouTube video that I just posted. This is like all kinds of different touches and more information. And so I'm starting to hit them. Maybe one of them I do 5 seconds. Maybe one of them I do a minute and a half. And I'm checking out more information. Then I go to the event. I walk in. Now I'm an event producer. I want to know the metadata. I want to know what kind of lanyards they're using. I want to see the check-in process. I want to know what the stage looks like, the sound system. I'm like sneaking around trying to find out more information about it, right? But this is all exposure for me. This is all opportunity for me to learn who he is and what he's about and what kind of professional he is. So by the time he gets on the stage, I've already gotten a lot of exposure to him that I'm not even counting because I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. But it's starting to creep in, right? I've got a lot of information on him. So he comes in, this is a 3-day event, comes in the first day, and he spends time with us. He's got the crowd cheering, everybody's like jumping in, everybody's like swarming around. We're talking about how great he is and everything. And I'm like, no, I've never seen this guy before. They're like, oh, you're gonna love him. These are all testimonials. These are all ways of touching me, right? So then he comes on, he gives us 7 hours of content with breaks in between. We go to lunch with each other. I'm hearing about other things that Brendan's doing. And then I come back into the room and he wraps up for the day and I go home that night. Call my friend or I talk to my friend when I get back to her house and I'm like, hey, this is what happened during the day. I'm rehashing it. This is more time I'm spending on it because I'm now telling her about it. You guys with me? This is all how it goes. This is all how you get the touches in. If you didn't have that email series, if you didn't have that email list, I might have just opted out. I might have been like, I'm not really sure about this. Go to my friend's house, hang out there. I don't even know if I really want to go, right? But since he drew me in with all this different touches, all this different information, other ways I could find out about him, I'm in, right? So I go to the next day, I walk in, and in the morning, he gives 2 speakers the platform. They come in and speak. They're talking about how great a friend Brendan is. They're talking about how great he is, and then they deliver their content. And then after that, we go to lunch, come back, boom, he's going to pitch. I've now had more than 4 different locations, more than 11 touches, and more than 7 hours of content. He's going to pitch. He pitches a $10,000 program. There's 2,000 people in the room. And in 20 minutes of a pitch, he signs up 350 people of the 2,000 for a $10,000 program. You guys can do the math. $3.5 million in 20 minutes. $3.5 million in a 20-minute talk. That's pretty good hourly rate. But was it really only 20 minutes? No, it was all these different touches. By the way, Because I'm now on his email list, in the morning, he's like, I can't wait to see you. In the lunchtime, he's like, we had a great morning. We're going to see you back at lunch. Don't forget to come back right at 2:30. And then at the evening, he's like, what a great day. These are the speakers that we have. This is the content that we went over, all these different touches, all this different email that I'm getting to collect more information about him. By the time he made that pitch, I am a buyer. I joined his program. It was actually a really good deal that's now $15,000. It was a really excellent program. We get to see him once a month in Los Angeles for a year and a half. It was incredible. I signed up for the second year because it was so awesome. And now I'm in, right? That's how it works. You've got to have that 7-4-11. If you only have social media, it won't have the impact. If you don't have a list, it won't have an impact. So how do we get that list? Now that I've given you the 7-4-11, have I convinced you that you need like to get out there in front of people and be able to do 11 different touches? This is the mistake that most entrepreneurs make. They feel like I invited them to a thing. They came to my webinar. They didn't buy. I sent them a follow-up email and they didn't buy. I guess I suck. I guess I don't have what they want to buy. I guess my program is trash. But it's not that case at all. Now, there were 350 buyers in Brendan's room, but he has 2,000 emails. He probably has 5,000 emails from that event alone because people signed up halfway and they didn't pay. But he added people to his list because he had that event, right? So thousands of additional emails just from that event. I'm sure he has more than, I think he has more than 10 million followers. So he's got a huge following. However, just from that one event, it's really interactive with at least 5,000 people. Now, those 350 people that bought, awesome. We're getting emails, we're getting love, we're getting information, we're getting bonuses, we're getting all kinds of stuff, and it's great. But he didn't forget about the rest of them. He's sending those people other emails. He's sending them information about his other YouTubes that came out, some other information that he has. He's soliciting, he's giving them information about other people that he knows and loves and trusts. Oh, Natalie Ellis, she's amazing. You got to see her webinar. Oh, Trent Shelton, he's an NFL star and he's the #1 mindset coach in the world. You got to find his information. And he's selling other people's information and getting affiliate commissions off of that, right? Because he has the list. Those with the list have the audience. Those with the audience have the power. Those with the power have the money. You've got to have the audience. You've got to have the list. All right, so how do you do it? My favorite way to do it is by getting on other people's stages to talk a little bit about who I am and what I'm up to in the world and share with them a lot of information. So if you can come on, and everybody's really nervous in my world about, oh, I don't want to give away all my secrets. I don't want to give it away for free. I charge $500 for this information. I charge $1,000 for this information. I charge $10,000 for this information. I can't give it away for free. My guess is all your information is on ChatGPT and Google somewhere. Everything you guys have to share is out there somewhere. So protecting the information like it's the gold is not what you need to do. I am a huge fan of giving information away. What people want is you and your help getting through the information to what's important to them. Working with them directly and being able to help them. Like that sea of information out there, you guys can go, you can actually, here's a statistic, everything at MIT is available on the web. Everything they teach at MIT is available on the web somewhere. They uploaded to the Library of Congress and all their texts and all their information. If you wanted to get a degree from MIT or the equivalent of a degree from MIT, you could study all the same books those people are studying and paying lots of money for. It's probably true with every other university. I just happen to know that that one is true. So that information that you think is so tight that you got to hang on to, really not all that tight, right? You're just packaging it in another way that they really want. And they're like, oh, I resonate with Wendy Vaughn. She's totally awesome. Like, I like who she is as a person. She explains things to me in a way that I can learn it, that it will go into my brain. And if I have a question, she's going to answer it, right? Unlike that stuff on MIT, like if I have a question, it's going to be difficult for me to find the answer digging through all that stuff. But if I go directly to somebody who has that information, they can disseminate it and give me the answer I'm looking for. Now, ChatGPT is catching up really fast. If I ask ChatGPT, true story, I was driving a Turo. Do you guys know what Turo is? Turo is it's like Airbnb for cars. So I'm travel full time, so I drive a lot of cars in other cities, and I'm driving this Mercedes SUV that I've never driven before. And I pull up to the gas station, and I know which side of the tank, which side the tank is on, because you can see on the gas gauge. But I can't get the damn door open. Like I cannot get it open for the life of me. I don't know where the little button is. I don't know if you're supposed to push it. I can't find it anywhere. So I go to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, I'm driving this car. Where's the damn gas thing? Right. And it says, oh, right down on the driver's side, be like right by the, where the door opens. And I was like, oh my God, there it is right there. So ChatGPT is catching up really fast with our questions. But when people are buying stuff from you, they're buying stuff from you because you can help them and hold them accountable, which ChatGPT can't do, understand their problems, which ChatGPT can't do yet, and really help them along with your own personal insights on what they need to do in order to get the next level. If you want connections, you got to go to Scott. You got to be able to get to him and be like, because he's an authentic connector, right? If I go to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, I want somebody who can do mindset, they'll be referring me the top people that they can find, right? Like Brendon Burchard or Tony Robbins or things like that. Okay, great. But if I go to Scott, I'm like, hey, I need somebody on mindset. He's going to think of the people that might resonate well with me, and he's going to connect me with those folks. So that's really where your value is. All right. So how do you get on stages and drop information? Well, if you're on a live in-person stage or a podcast, those are two different ways to engage the audience at the end of your talk. At the end of a podcast, you cannot say, go to bit.ly/xpdq/n3x ampersand, right? You can't do that. You have to be able to say something that people will remember after they get out of the gym or off their bike or out of their car where they can actually type it in. So you have to say something that people can remember, like, oh, you can find me by going to speakersplayhouse.com. It's a free event, happens every single Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Again, that's speakersplayhouse.com. You got to say something they can remember. Conversely, if you're on a summit or if you're on something like this, you can drop a link in the chat that they can click on. And it can be that Bitly account, right? Like it can be something really, really wild as long as they can click on it and get it active. If you're putting something in a chat, by the way, you'll notice that when I put stuff in the chat, you always put the HTTPS:// at the beginning. Otherwise, it's not a live link that they can click on. It's a link that they have to cut and paste. So again, you have to be appropriate to the medium. Now, if you're on a real live in-person stage, then you're going to say something like, I would love to connect with you. I'm going to be at the back of the room at the end of this talk. If you resonated with what I said, let's have a chat and I can get your information and set you up with exactly what you need in order to get to the next level, right? Meet me in the back of the room is very, very effective, all right? Also a QR code. If you have a PowerPoint, you can throw a QR code up on the screen. Those are lots of fun. People will you'll see the audience respond very quickly by pulling out this little device and trying to make a click really fast. And you'll see how many people are engaged, which is great feedback if you're in a live audience. Very, very fun to watch that happen. However, buyer beware, caveat emptor. When I was at an event called Podfest, I paid $10,000 to get on that stage. They had about 3,000 people in the audience. It was my ideal clients. They're fantastic. Everybody in there should buy what I have. Like all of the people in there needed what I had, right? So during that event, we had many speakers. Most of them had PowerPoint presentations, which they relied upon a little too heavily, in my opinion. PowerPoint can be a crutch. You'll notice I don't have a PowerPoint today, right? Because I want you looking at me and connecting with me. Their PowerPoint was a little bit of a crutch. They put up a QR code at the end of their talk. We had no internet in that particular room. Nobody's phones worked, no internet worked, no, like they couldn't get on nothing worked. I had my regular hotspot, which works everywhere, did not work. All right. What I had during that event, here's a pro tip, is I had forms that I handed out to the audience. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 leads from that event out of 3,000 people that were at the event. Everybody else that was at that event probably got 4 or 5 because they didn't have the form that could be collected back. So pro tip, you got to be able to collect that information somehow. All 2,000 of those went into my database. All 2,000 of those got follow-ups. Now, those follow-ups are pretty regular. If you're already on my list, some of you already are on my list, I email my list every day. A lot of folks will be like, oh, I don't want to email my list too much because they'll jump out, they'll unsubscribe. Unsubscribes are my friend. They're the best things that ever happened to me. If I email you and you don't want information about entrepreneurship or speaking and you unsubscribe, great. If you want information about speaking or entrepreneurship, you're going to stay on. And eventually you might get bored and you might opt out. Oftentimes people will opt back in a couple of weeks or a couple of months later. I've had people email me and I save them because they're so delicious. I have them and they email me and they're like, Kimberly, I accidentally unsubscribed from your list. How do I get back on? I'm like, awesome. Let's play, right? Now, Speakers Playhouse is a free event. It's the top of my funnel. It's what I usually drop at every event that I'm at. Come play. It's a free thing that you can do to learn more about me. It's not a PDF. If I'm on a summit, I'll drop a PDF, the top 10 things you need to do to engage your virtual audience, right? That's because people want to know that. How do I get them to engage? How do I get them to click? How do I get them to play with me, right? And I'll drop that in the chat when I'm doing a web summit because it's a powerful thing for them to click, fill out their email address, and boom, they're done, right? But if I'm on a podcast, I'm not going to say like the whole link to that because it's really long and it has the word Thrive card in it and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So I don't want to do that. I want to be able to send them someplace that they can go very quickly and get the information. Here's a tip. The name of my company is Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel. Never name your company anything people can't spell. Right? It's just too awful, right? I actually have another event called Potapalooza, and I joke and I'm like, fun to say, hard to spell, right? Like, don't do that either. I have another company called it's an audiobook production company. It's sort of defunct now. I used to do that. I don't do it so much anymore. Now it just has audiobooks in it, but I don't continue to get new audiobooks for it. But it's called I'm Hearing Stories, which I thought was a great title. Like my son and I thought it up and we were like, I'm hearing stories. How cute is that? Right? Like I'm hearing stories. And we thought it was really funny. But then people were like, is it I've been hearing stories? Is there an apostrophe after the I'm? Is it I'm hearing things? I heard one say, I'm hearing voices. I was like, okay, this is totally different, not where I wanted to go. But you got to name your thing something that people can remember from a podcast, right? So I switched to just saying, just go to speakersplayhouse.com. And if they go there, there's going to be links for them to join. There's going to be stuff for them to do. And then after they opt in, they're going to get a page that says, thank you. By the way, would you like to join our Facebook? Click here. Facebook group, click here. Would you like to have a free downloadable on this? Click here. And there's more ways that I can connect with them and touch them and make sure that they get engaged. Now, I do email my audience every single day. That's 50,000 people that get something from me every day. Do they look at it? Maybe, maybe not. Some of them will just be like, not for me, 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 not for me. Oh, this is fun. Right? I don't ever take anybody off my list. If they disengage, they disengage. If they unsubscribe, they unsubscribe. But I learned really early on that from a Toastmasters group, there was a Toastmasters group that I belonged to, that one lady was on the list for 10 years, would get the information on Toastmasters every year for 10 years. And then she divorced her husband. And because of the divorce, she decided that she would start going to Toastmasters. Her husband was very controlling and didn't want her to step out of her realm, but she kept getting the emails on that Toastmasters. And it was such an impressive story later that she was like, I watched you for 10 years from the background. Thank you for not unsubscribing me. Thank you for not forgetting me. And I thought that still gives me chills to think about. So don't worry about people that are just lurking. That's awesome. They're just getting more touches. She just needed more than 12 touches. Nothing wrong with that. Just let her have the love, let her have the information. As far as what to send out, I nurture my list and grow it and bring new people into it all the time. So I have no problem sending the same stuff out again. We have a guest speaker information call that happens about once a month. Of course, I'm going to advertise that to my whole list every month. We have about 77 people signed up for it. It's actually this afternoon. And it starts call for speakers. We are looking for more to fill more than 500 speaker spots on my stages. Come find out more on this free information call. Now, the people who have been on my list for 5 years have gotten that many times. But it doesn't matter. They're just going to be like, oh, yeah, I know about that. Or, oh, I'm ready now. I want to go to that. And that's perfectly fine. It's no problem to send people more information about something that you've already sent. In fact, they might have wanted to go for 2 or 3 years and they just haven't been able to. And now you've hit them at the right time. So don't ever worry about giving people information that is over and repeated. One thing you should be really careful about, I've told you, I don't mind emailing my list every day. I keep adding new people to my list. I bring them in the top of the funnel. They will buy eventually. They will continue to nurture into a sale. The stuff that I don't email them is stuff that is not relevant to my audience or to my programs, products, or services. So if I have a really good partner who teaches people, and I do, who teaches people how to get their kids through college on scholarship funds without paying a dime. And she did it with 2 kids of her own. So she's got a really great email that can go out that converts really well. I have never sent that to my list. Why? Because my people are not those people. They will be wondering why I sent them information about that. There are people in my group who have fantastic stuff about bile duct safety or what like gut health and all kinds of stuff that's really good. I don't send that to my list. Do not confuse your list. Now, I have great partners who have other stuff that supplements what I do. As a matter of fact, I don't really teach. I don't have a coaching program on how to be a public speaker. I have lots of people who have lots of great information about that. I am happy to send that to my list. I have people who know how to do Facebook ads, right? I can send that information to my list if it's relevant to entrepreneurship or speaking. If I have somebody that has something that helps people build an ascension plan or find their ideal target client, or how to get clarity on what to sell, all of those things are valuable to my audience. Just don't send them things that are irrelevant to your audience. So if I give you something and I'm like, hey, Potapalooza is amazing, you should send that to your whole audience, and your audience wants to know about gut health, probably not a match, right? So just be careful that you're making sure that because then they'll unsubscribe, right? I speak about this seriously because I did this. I made this mistake. I actually spoke on an event for that friend of mine who teaches people about getting scholarships for their kids. She asked if I could speak on her summit. And I said, it's not a match for me. Those are not my people. Those people who are looking to get their kids into college are W-2 employees. They're working their butts off to be able to pay for their kids' college education. Those people are not entrepreneurs and they're not speakers for the most part, right? So she took my no and then came back later and she said, I really need you to speak. I had a speaker back out. Could you please come and speak on leadership? Your stuff is great for learning to be a leader. You have an amazing talk on leadership, which I do. I have an amazing talk on leadership. So I changed it slightly for her audience. And I said, 10 things that your college kid has probably already done that count as leadership on their college application. Now we had 3 simultaneous tracks happening. Nobody went to the other tracks. They all went to mine. They were like, I need to know that for my kid. Like, that's a good talk, right? So they all showed up on my talk. At the end, I gave a great talk. The last 2 things, or 2 of them that were in there, one of them was public speaking, right? Public speaking in front of a large group. And one of them was creating your own business, entrepreneurship, right? So I wove them in as really good ideas because that's true. But the other 8 things were whatever other leadership things were, right? Like being in an office or whatever, right? The other things that count as leadership. So at the end of my talk, I dropped a link. I said, here's the 10 things with a description of how to make sure that you get them and blah, blah, blah. I got tons of opt-ins, somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was 100 opt-ins. A great turnout for a summit, pretty good. The next week, I had about 98 unsubscribes. Why? Because I was sending them information on entrepreneurship and speaking, which they didn't care about. They just wanted to know how to get their kid into college, right? For free. So now I had a whole bunch of unsubscribes. That's not actually a bad thing, but it was a waste of my time, right? It just wasn't a good use of my time, except for maybe the two that stayed on. And I'm using that poetically. I don't really know if they're still there or not. And also that I got some exposure and some other people might have said, hey, I've heard of that Kimberly Crowe girl, right? That might have happened. That ancillary stuff, I don't recommend that you seek out stages to do that because it's really not worth your time. That said, your first move is to get to Speaker's Playhouse, come listen, and during those 90 minutes, you're going to hear about somewhere between 40 and 100 stage opportunities and speaking opportunities on podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, web summits, webinars, real live in-person stages, Facebook Lives, all kinds of different stages and speaking opportunities where you can get in front of somebody else's audience. But when you do, I want you to listen really carefully because we ask them to say, who's in their audience, because that's what you need to know before you get on their stage. Now, if somebody asks you, please, would you be on my stage? Sure, that's fine. But if you're seeking out stages to get on, please seek out the ones that have your target market in them, right? So if you speak to women, speak on Voices of Women. It's an incredible summit that happens on International Women's Day. And it's gonna attract a lot of women, right? And most of them are somewhere 40 plus, right? There aren't a lot of young girls that are seeking out the Voices of Women Summit, although there are some, it's maybe 5 or 10%, right? Most of them are 40 and above. So if that's your target market, that's a great summit for you to speak on. Sorry, Scott and Bogdan, you cannot speak on that one. It's only for women. You're welcome to help get the word out and you're welcome to help in the background, but it's only for women's voices for that one. We have another one called Voices of Color. That one is for people of color and underrepresented voices. But then we have very, 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 very targeted ones like the Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel Web Summit, which is all about entrepreneurship. So I've had people try to speak on that one that speak about, I literally had one that wanted to speak about dementia. And I was like, not a match. I have great summits for you to speak on, but that's not one of them. I have had people want to speak on the person who was doing the scholarships wanted to speak on it. I was like, not a match. I've had people want to talk about gut health, not a match, right? So speak on the subject in front of your ideal target market. And they were like, well, entrepreneurs need to know information about ergonomic chairs. And I'm like, well, kinda, but not really a match, right? They're not coming to the summit to find about ergonomic chairs. They're all sitting at their dining room table in a really shitty chair and they want to make money first before they can afford one, right? So yeah, not a match. So make sure that you're speaking in front of those kinds of the right kind of audience. When you are seeking out podcasts to speak on, first come to Speakers Playhouse. We're going to announce a whole bunch of them that you can speak on, and we don't get in the middle. We don't charge for that or anything. They just come to the stage and they're like, hi, I'm Kimberly. I have a podcast called Entrepreneur Experts Cafe. We tell entrepreneurial stories, and at the end, you get to drop your link on how to get in contact with you. If you're interested, my contact information is in the chat. Boom, they drop it in the chat, and if that's for you, you reach out to them and you connect with them and you get on their podcast. We don't charge anything for that. The reason that I have Speakers Playhouse is because I now have a captive audience of people who are speakers that want information about that. And then I talk about all my other events and all the other ways they can pay me and work with me. It's a great opportunity to have something free that serves the public. And at the same time, they get to know my personality really quickly. I am very fast paced. If you guys have been to Speakers Playhouse, it is like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride meets Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's a goofball gamification, quiz show. We do a lot of fun stuff and we give away all kinds of things on that event from our joint venture partners. So it's a lot of fun and people are motivated to come back again and again. So who has questions on how to get on stages or what they should speak about or what kinds of stages they should get on or how to convert to a list?
So first off, let's unmute ourselves a bit and let's give it up to Kimberly. This was
Awesome.
exceptional. I loved how you flowed from the first moment until now. It was like, a work of art. And I was taking notes throughout your speech. And funny enough, I actually have a podcast interview right after this, and I'm like, oh, I can use this. Oh, this is interesting. I love this. Beautiful. And guys, if you're watching the recording, I'll link Kimberly's Potapalooza and Speakers Playhouse below. Make sure to check that, or in the description wherever you might see this. Now, let's open up for questions. Who would like to be?
Actually, you sparked something at that by saying that you have a podcast interview. So Potapalooza is an event for podcasters and speakers to connect. Our podcasters get featured on the event. They get in front of our whole audience. They talk about their podcast so they can get new signups and new subscriptions and all kinds of stuff, and new guests as well. But monetizing from a podcast is really key. So you can monetize from a podcast a variety of different ways. Make sure that you, on all of your podcasts, invite them to something, have a call to action at the end of your podcast. Join my Facebook group, join my other thing, come find out more about me on my website. You got to have your own call to action besides just the guest call to action if you're interviewing them. And then also make sure that the guests that you interview are good potential clients. I started my podcast, which is Entrepreneur Experts Cafe, because I wanted to stop doing coffee chats with people that got me nowhere. Right?
Mm,
People are like, can I get on your calendar? Can I pick your brain? Can I blah, blah, blah? Okay, well, let's have you on my show. How's that? Why don't I have you on Entrepreneurs Experts Cafe? It's an 8 to 12-minute interview. That's it. Nice and tight. So we book 20-minute spots. We come in, I start the interview right away. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get started and it's going to be fun and easy and effortless. And then I go through the interview process. I learn everything I need to know about them. And then after it's over, I can either say, thanks so much. It was so nice meeting you. It'll be up in a couple of weeks. Or I can say, hey, now that I know what you do, I think we should work together. Let's talk. Let's figure this out because your stuff is great for my audience, or I want your stuff, or did you know that I have this thing that you could benefit from? So now we've stopped doing coffee chats. We started creating content that's now out there on the web, which is awesome. It's a benefit to them. They're going to share it with their people. But now I've made a contact and I can either throw it away, not literally, but I could be like, thanks, that was nice meeting you, but bye now. Or now that I've dug into who you are, I know if we can create something. So Bogdan, that was for everybody listening, but you as well. If you have a podcast, make sure that you make it in your best interest as well.
I think this might be a very, very interesting topic for a next guest speaker spot. I know people in Dragon 88 who are using a podcast as a lead generation, in this specific sense. And I know a lot of people are looking into podcasting as a source of attracting the right type of clients. So I think this would be a very, very interesting topic to cover. You guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
haven't launched a podcast since 30 minutes before this meeting. So
Awesome sauce. Make
That
sure
was
it's in your business.
basically,
Beautiful.
yeah, the
And
podcast is basically how I grew my business for 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the funnel. It's super simple. Just
awesome.
identify the people, have them on the show, and have a conversation, and they become a client.
It's also an excellent thing to trade. If somebody has something and you're like, ooh, I want that, you can say, hey, I'd love to have you on my show.
Yep.
And I know that your thing is totally awesome. I'd love to take a look at that as well. And oftentimes people will be like, oh, I'd love to be on your show. What can I give you? So it's a really cool thing to be able to trade when you go to a networking event.
Yeah, definitely.
Powerful.
And the thing that I did to screen, protect your time, like you were saying, Kimberly, in terms of like, yeah, we don't want to waste time, but so I would have like an application process. Do you utilize that at
I
all?
do not. I do not. If no, I don't. Because the right people often jump out at an application. The people that I want to talk about that I want to talk to don't have a lot of time to fill out a big form, right? Now I know some people that works really well for. It's just my people. So my people are like, I'm a mover and a shaker. You're going to make me fill stuff out. Never mind. I'm just going to move on, right? Now, some people want you to make a big investment of your time before you can get on my calendar. And I get it. I definitely get that. It just doesn't work for me. So I don't have that. I also do not, many of you now know, I don't have a calendar link. I don't have a booking link. You cannot just book on my calendar. I will take your booking link and book on your calendar, or you have to go through my admin and she will email me and say, do you want this person on your calendar before because I've had people like, oh, I just want to pick your brain, or I booked on your call, but I really want to sell you something, or, that kind of thing. So I don't play that game. I'm out on that. I do not give out my booking link for anything in the world. I don't have one, so I don't give it out.
Nice.
Good question. Any other questions on how to get on a podcast? Like what to say to a podcaster that you want to get on their podcast?
I was just going to say, I went to Speakers Playhouse was it last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever. And, signed up to talk to a few people about their podcasts and different things. And a couple of them have worked, a couple of them haven't worked, but they were great conversations and got to meet some great people. So there's some great people in the entire process, and I'll be there for part of that hour and a half is long. It's just hard to find that slot. I just need to reserve it every week. But no, the way you've got it set up is phenomenal. It truly is. Congratulations on what you've accomplished. It's amazing.
Thank you. The format, so you all know, is at the very beginning, we let all we say hello to people and we make a few announcements, and then we get the show hosts on the stage right away. And they come in and one right after another, they just give their shows, they drop their contact information in the chat. That happens between 10:30 and 11:15. About that time frame, we actually give away a program from one of our joint venture partners to the entire audience. So you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get it, like everybody gets a car, right? Not a car, but the program. Then after that, we make announcements. We announce the other stages that I have available. And we get that, and those are often pay to play, but they're very good opportunities to speak to a very wide audience. That's not just like, oh, 3 people listen to my podcast, right? Like it's a big audience and it's live and interactive. And then we let all the speakers come up and share their name, their talk title, and their target market. And then they put their contact information in the chat. So if you're a podcaster and you want guests, coming at the end is super important. If you're a speaker and you want to get on stages, coming at the beginning is super important. If you want the free program, the middle is super important, but nobody has to be there the whole day. We do not take attendance. People will be like, oh, I've been meaning to come. I'm like, we don't take attendance. It doesn't, I'm not checking to make sure you're there. So, but that's the format of it. And if you are a podcaster and you're looking for guests, or you just want to just get on the mic and be like, I am looking for guests, but this is my awesome show. And you drop a link to subscribe to your show, people subscribe to your show because they're like, that's cool. Like, I want to listen to that. So it's a great advertising mechanism for you as well.
Powerful.
You've done an amazing job of training those around you. You really have.
We're not into the boring at all. If it's not fun,
you've done an amazing job.
And I've been to other events and it's a snooze fest, and you come to ours and it's like on, off, right? We're going to get you there really quick.
Very much so.
Super fun.
Very cool.
So number one way to get on podcasts is come to Podapalooza or Speakers Playhouse. Podapalooza, if you're a VIP, we will put you on up to 5 podcasts during the event, and you get to pick which ones are right for you, and they get to pick which VIPs are right for them. And then when you match up, just like a dating profile, we put you on the schedule and away you go. Super, super fun. And you just get it knocked out. 5 podcasts in one day. Super fun. The other way is just to really reach out and ask people, but don't promote yourself. You don't say, hi, Kimberly, I saw your show and I would make a really great guest, and here's why. We just delete those, okay? You can say, hi, Kimberly, I love your show and I'd like to be a guest on it. How do I do that? And they will respond, all right? How do I do that? Okay, well, come to Speakers Playhouse, find out more about it, or click this link, or fill out this form, or whatever it is, right? But if you start pitching yourself, we just delete those because we know you're sending them to everybody, and everybody deletes them. So I guess you get a few hits, but it doesn't work for most podcasters. It's just not a win. Some people will say, listen to 10 podcasts first, make sure it's right for you. Sure, if you have the time to do that. I mean, ideally, you're you care about their podcast. But I've interviewed people who've never even heard of Entrepreneur Experts Cafe, and they're like, sounds good to me, right? Okay, great. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So it's different for different podcasters. But my guess is you should just reach out to them and say, I'd love to be on your podcast. How can I do that? And they'll send you the information. Some of them are pay to play. I've referred to that. Some of them are free. And we do occasionally have paid speaking gigs on our stages on Speakers Playhouse. Pay to play means I'm going to pay to be in front of your audience because I have something of value and your audience is perfect for me. Don't ever pay to play on an audience that's not perfect for you. I literally paid $10,000 cash money to be in front of the Podfest audience. All of them could buy my stuff. All of them were great prospects, and I made a way more than $10,000 by doing that. Pay to play should net you ideally 5x your investment, 5 times your investment. If it makes your money back, great. If it potentially can do 5x your investment, then do it immediately, pay the money and do it immediately, even if it doesn't convert. The concept that I know this is my ideal audience and I could make 5 times my investment, do it. That's great. Then if it makes 1.1 times your investment, awesome, right? If it makes 10 times your investment, awesome. But you want to make sure that, like, if I'm paying 10K, I need an audience that could potentially pay me 50K. And we definitely got that. So some of them are not 10K. Some of them are like, I have stages that are $1,000 to speak on in front of a paid audience. If the audience is free and they're not, here's a tip. If you can speak to an audience who has paid, then they have found their credit card and they know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's a different audience than the free audience. So my Speakers Playhouse audience, they're free. Like, everybody that comes here hasn't paid a dime to be able to come to Speakers Playhouse. It's a free audience. You're going to get some good stuff out of that, right? But people who come to Podapalooza have paid cash money for the privilege of going to Podapalooza. When you speak to that audience, it's a different audience. It's a different audience. Some of our stages are $97. Some of them are $500, some of them are $1,000, some of them are $4,000. I have an event coming up that you can speak on a cruise ship. On a cruise, you actually go on the cruise and you can speak on the cruise ship, and you pay for the privilege of speaking and you pay for the cruise.
This was so awesome. Guys, if you have any questions, absolutely reach out to Kimberly via, email. You have her in our directory, in our Dragon 88 directory. And I'm making a note to attend these events because I'm actively looking for people with audiences for Dragon 88 to include them into our group. So you're gonna see my face in the Zoom calls as well
Great.
soon. Beautiful.
Well, you should come to the cruise. Like, those people have paid cash money to be on it. They're doing well, right? If they're broke and say, oh, I don't have enough money to do this. Okay, came up with $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to go on this cruise. Probably
Yes.
have enough money to come join Dragon 88, play with millionaires.
Yeah, Wendy was telling me about a similar event that they're doing with a cruise, and my answer was the same. If my baby daughter wants to go, I'll go. If she's like,
Nice.
nah, we'll set this one out. But yeah, because we're having our first baby in
Yeah,
a few months, so
Congratulations.
that's
Congratulations.
exciting.
a
I'm
big-
actually on a cruise overlapping your cruise.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah, we might meet in some port somewhere.
That would be great.
Awesome.
An
But
umbrella drink with an umbrella drink.
let's wait, I made it up here.
I just wanted to
mixed
say,
everything
Kimberly,
up.
really quick, I love your energy. I could listen to you talk all day. You're just like so nonstop, so high energy. Ba 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 ba. I
Yeah.
love it. It's never
This is
a snooze fest with you. Not by a long shot.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
100%. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for, making the time to join us. I would absolutely love to have that conversation, to have you again as a guest speaker to continue. And I'm not gonna hold you any longer because I know you need to get ready for our Speakers Playhouse. And guys, you have the links if you want to join that. Absolutely, hop on. And next week, same time, same day, we're meeting up for a mastermind call. You get to meet other dragons that maybe you haven't met or create new opportunities. And have fun. Have a fun week.
Have a
Thanks, Bogdan.
fabulous
Thanks,
day.
everyone. Thanks for
Kimberly.
playing with me.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Great to see you. Enjoy
Thanks,
See you
your
Wendy.
next
day.
time.
See you, Bogdan.